Hello and welcome back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Dumbest Moments of the Week. Well, we've got another interesting week of Alex moments to go over, that's for sure. And as you might have guessed, most of it has to do with her trying to take advantage of this ongoing health scare. Yes, Democrats and particularly socialists and communists like Lexi, they've been all too happy to try and use our stress and fear against us as a way to promote freebies, handouts, and other far-left policies, which they were already pushing for years before this. For example, Cortez came out with her now infamous and failed Green New Deal over a year ago, but for some reason she thinks she can now pretend these are new ideas she wants to implement because of this crisis. Needless to say, I don't think many people are buying this, aside from AOC's supporters who already were behind her, hoping they could get this free stuff she keeps promising them. Our first AOC moment involves people paying their rent. Alex is strongly suggesting her followers don't pay their rent, actually. This is coming from one of her now famous live streams. And as usual, when Cortez goes off book here, she's even more ridiculous and incoherent than usual. Check this clip out.
Has organized a rent strike. That is, okay, you just refusing to pay your rent is not necessarily a rent strike. A rent strike is an organized action, which, I encourage you to research or whatever if you're curious about that. But know that it's an organized action.
Basically, AOC is encouraging people to band together and not pay their rent. Pretty scandalous and dangerous and could turn into a lot of trouble. And look, I understand it's tough times right now. And I've even considered the option to not pay my mortgage myself since there was an offer there from the company. But I refused because I knew I would just have to pay that back later, as would these renters if they followed AOC's very bad advice. In fact, there's a good chance people listening to this brain-dead congresswoman could get kicked out of their places and evicted, and they could be living on the streets after her bad advice. So unless your building is specifically offering to postpone your rent payments, I would recommend everyone pay them on time. If you can't, there are other options to consider before trying to form a little union at your building and starting a picket line at the front office or something.
It's not just like, I'm a rent strike. It is a disciplined, organized, action and with concrete demands. It often requires organizing, so make sure you do that, but research and read about that.
Yeah, well, you don't sound too certain or confident to me. All of these ifs, ands, and buts, and all her ums and pauses and non sequiturs, AOC herself doesn't even sound confident about this proposal. So should her followers really be taking this half-baked idea to their landlords then? Because I don't think so. And more importantly, what we all should be asking is, will AOC be staging a rent strike herself? Because I highly doubt she has the time to go to that trouble, nor would she be able to or need to deal with this kind of risk. On top of that, she's a rich girl, of course, coming from a pampered and privileged family. In fact, Alex is so out of touch in that regard, she didn't even know what a garbage disposal was. Probably because she's had servants and maids taking care of her like a baby her whole entire life. This could also explain her immature nature, her lack of real-world experience, and the fact that her voice still sounds like it's coming from a 10-year-old.
All in all, just have the honest conversation with your landlord. If you need just a break, if you need $500, if you need $1,000, if you can't pay at all, have that conversation. But know that in the state of New York, Cuomo has called for a mortgage moratorium. They can talk to their bank and have that discussion with them.
Here's where AOC pretends to care about New York and her district specifically, at least for a few seconds. Not sure I'm buying this half-assed attempt here though. I think we can all see Alex is far more concerned with national politics and her own self-image, over actually trying to help those who elected her in her small section of New York City. That's why instead of seeing her go around her district talking to people there and bringing up their issues specifically, well, Lexi instead opts to waste time on Twitter every day, live streaming from Washington and talking about her silly socialist agenda, which is a national plan that affects her area in the Bronx too, sure, but it's all too clear she is far more focused on the bigger picture. Some might say that's necessary too, and it kind of is, but I also think when Alex nods or winks at her district, it's more of an afterthought than anything. It's like she almost forgot they were even there, so she then throws them some token lip service, but really, she's still focused on other things, namely herself, when really she shouldn't be.
But also I think it's part of a larger conversation about capitalism, because a lot of people's main income has to do with just owning property. Which, there are some elements of it where, like, if you are doing repairs and all these other things.
Yeah, owning property can lead to a source of income. What's your point, Alex? What's wrong with that? You make this sound like it's a bad thing, but I just don't get it. People can amass enough wealth to buy property and then turn that into a profitable business, like, say, renting space out to businesses or people. That's their right. Why would that even be an issue unless, of course, Cortez is a communist who thinks people shouldn't own anything? So basically here, AOC is encouraging her followers to engage in organized rent strikes because capitalism is to blame for people making money off of just owning property. But just owning property is no small feat, of course. You got to make money, earn enough to buy it, and then keep the place in good condition year after year. And sure, there are people who inherit properties too from their parents or family, but that's because their family members engaged in that first step successfully somewhere down the line. So why shouldn't parents be able to pass along their wealth to their kids? Sounds pretty reasonable and rather fair to me, but I'm sure if it were up to Lexi, inheritance would be illegal too, and people's property would just go to the all-encompassing communist state. That way Alex can handle our stuff the way she sees fit, because I guess a former bartender knows better. She thinks she knows what to do with our own wealth better than we do ourselves.
It's an area that exposes a lot of income and socioeconomic inequity.
Wait a second there. People just owning property exposes income and socio inequality? What the hell does that even mean? Sounds to me like some made up word salad meant to convince young people to follow your socialist agenda. Because here's the thing, just because some things are unequal, that doesn't mean it's unfair. And it also doesn't mean things are wrong or something criminal has happened. Nor does it mean the government needs to step in and equalize things, which is what Alex appears to desire. To me, that just sounds like you want to strip things away from the haves, the working class, middle class, and rich people who earn their wealth fair and square. And Alex wants to take our stuff away from us and give it to poor people who didn't earn it. And sure, I feel bad for the disenfranchised too, but stealing from the haves to give to the nots is definitely not the answer. And really, AOC is just doing this speech as a way to bribe poorer voters who don't know any better. But instead of offering them gifts, which you stole from people who earn them, we really should just be encouraging poorer people to learn, get training, and start working and amassing their own wealth independently, instead of trying to steal it from others. Or with AOC, she's promising to give them something they don't deserve, a promise AOC is likely not to keep anyway. Next, we're going to pivot to another topic. We'll get back to AOC making lavish promises to poor people in exchange for their votes later in our last point, but for now, let's look at her awful attempt to blame Trump for this terrible health scare, which we're all dealing with and which came from a Far East communist nation no less. Check this one out.
Would be lower than it is now? Yes. I think that if Trump took this seriously, if Republicans took it to, people who care more about profit than human lives, we would have taken precautions much earlier and we would have saved lives. We either would have gone into lockdown earlier in some circumstances, or we would have started producing these damn ventilators.
Yikes. Well, I hate to break it to you, lady, but Trump created a task force to combat this problem all the way back in January, which was also when he started limiting travel from the country of origin too. Now, what do you guys think the Democrats were doing back then? Well, if your memory is as short as Alex's, let me remind you, Cortez and her commie cohorts were all focused on impeachment at that time. They wanted to impeach Trump and remove him for doing nothing wrong other than being someone they don't like. And in addition, not one of the Democrats were talking about this ongoing upcoming crisis, let alone were they making moves to actually help with it. In fact, back then we covered a very funny and very telling thing Alex said about it. She was calling people racist for avoiding Asian restaurants in light of the health scare's origin being from the Far East. That's right. And now months later, and Alex wants us to pretend that never happened. Not surprising, since as we covered in other videos, Democrats are trying to rewrite history on this issue, pretending they cared early on when really they were encouraging us to go out and get orange chicken and wonton soup. Absolutely insane and ridiculous. And such a low blow, since they're also trying to blame this problem on Trump now when the president was one of the first and only ones trying to make moves to deal with it, while they were calling us racist for even suggesting something had to be done.
Way earlier than we are now. We would have invoked the Defense Production Act. But because Trump didn't do that early enough, now we're scrambling, and everything that is happening late. And every decision that we make late means that people are dying unnecessarily.
Another classic liberal ploy. This is the old and debunked argument that Trump has blood on his hands, which is funny because these are the same people who refuse to admit and identify the real source of this plague. In fact, like before, lefties like AOC will call you racist if you say this came from the Far East. But now it's here and we're dealing with it. And somehow the deaths are Trump's fault now? Give me a break. And now I gotta repeat my analogy for this situation again because it's just too perfect to let go. This is equivalent to the villain in an action movie blaming the deaths of the people they were killing on the hero character. They too will say something like, "There's blood on your hands, hero." But us watching the film, we all know the hero is the only one trying to stop the villain. And in case it isn't clear, here in the real world, Trump is the hero trying to stop this foreign problem from destroying us all. And meanwhile, hacks like AOC, they're defending the villain, the source of this problem, calling us racist if we even hint that it's coming from Asia. Not too surprising either, considering AOC is a communist, so of course she would be defending her fellow comrades.
They are dying due to incompetence. They are dying due to poor decision making. They are dying due to a lack of listening to scientists and doctors, and they're dying due to a crisis and a pandemic of a lack of leadership, not just because of a disease.
Way to use a crisis to blame someone you've already hated for years. Damn, lady, can you get a grip already? She's also almost throwing her arms around again like she did when she freaked out in Congress during the passing of that stimulus package a few weeks back. And with that said, this chick is clearly some kind of actor. This is all a performance and a terrible one at that. Really wish the left could at least get better looking presenters here though, with less grainy voices and better wardrobes too. Those shoulder pads have been out of date for decades.
And so the people who made those decisions, who decided to prioritize profit over human life, need to answer for those decisions. And, it just drives me nuts that there are these journalists that are out there that are just assessing the president's tone of his voice instead of what he's actually saying.
What he's actually saying? Wow, what a way to put things. Way to draw things out. And I have to admit, right here, I am kind of not sure what to say in response to this. It doesn't make any sense, so what am I supposed to say? AOC is clearly just throwing around buzzwords and saying made up shit like people are putting profits above helping. But where is that happening? Literally, where? Where are people putting profits above helping this problem? The whole gosh darn country is shut down now. No one is doing this then. That profit bit is just something you say in reaction to everything, Alex, because you're a commie loser who thinks people who make money are evil. In her mind, the way people are supposed to make money is the way they do it in communist countries south of the border. They either steal their money from others or they use the government to reallocate it, meaning the government then steals it for them. AOC never thinks to make or earn or create wealth for herself because she can't. She doesn't have a business mind or any skills to do it, so in her head, the only way to get money is to take it from other people, namely people who earned it like middle class and rich people. That's why she vilifies people with assets, acting like we're the criminals when really they're the ones trying to steal our stuff, pretending it's theirs when it's really not. Finally, I want to wrap things up with one last terrible AOC moment. This time it comes from a tweet that reads, "Deaths are disproportionately spiking in black and brown communities. Why? Because the chronic toll of redlining, environmental racism, wealth gap, etc. are underlying health conditions. Inequality is comorbidity. Relief should be drafted with a lens of reparations." Wow, lots of made up words in there. And oh my god, did she really try and go there? I literally can't believe what I'm seeing. Trying to use this crisis to push through reparations of all things? Giving free money to minorities for no reason? What a joke. It's almost like Alex is trying to become a parody at this point. She's kind of beyond parody if you really think about it, because if I were making a liberal parody Twitter account, I would probably be writing something similar to what Lexi is already posting unironically. So yeah, people wouldn't believe the parody because for Democrats, the parody has become real life. What do you guys think? Is AOC going too far, finally? Will the Democrats continue to try and take advantage of this crisis in very obvious ways? And do you think reparations are in order for black and brown people, even though it has nothing to do with this crisis and none of these living minorities actually had to go through what their ancestors did hundreds of years ago? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.